beware of spoilers. I am Adam in my abnormally loud car today. That's disconcerting. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, for whatever reason, when it's cold and my car is loud, I'm like, alright, that makes sense. I can see why, and I don't know why. It's not like it's an old car, and it's not like the rules of arthritis apply or anything like that, where it's like, it makes sense that it's like rattly and all of that, but no, it's just, my car is just making a lot of noise today. So what's on today's itinerary? Episode 5 of the Girl From Plainville, the TV show about the texting homicide case with Michelle Carter and Roy Conrad, or Conrad Roy. So it's a sad story, and I do like that this show, in a way that, what was the other one? In a way that, like, The Dropout didn't. This show explains why, son of a bitch, why is there a police officer over here on this street? So now everyone's like a fucking speed limit. Like, why Michelle acted the way she did without like explanation as to like what I'm looking for here. Like without like making her the victim of the whole situation. Like she's not a victim in the case. Like, and it's like she's not a she's a sympathetic character almost, in that this girl is so horrifically broken. Like, there is so much wrong with her, and so much goes wrong in her life, and so much happens to make her become the person that we see her to be in this show. But at the same time, they're showing that, but not making her out to be the full victim. Like, it's about her and what she did, and also, like, the contributing factors that led up to her doing what she did. Which is an important distinction to make, because it's like, look, we can sit here and we can be like, look, this is an isolated case, what Michelle did is what Michelle did, and it's not indicative of a wider problem, and I think that probably, like, the bigger, like, thing to address with this is that, look, if we're going, you can't, the question is, when you have a case like this, the question is, why did the person who do it? What happened to Michelle that's going to cause whatever happened to happen? Like, why is that, like, what was the contributing factor? It's like, that's the question that fundamentally needs to be answered in a show like this. And I don't think that, like, where The Dropout gives us a little bit of context for, like, Elizabeth and her personality, it doesn't really do a great job of answering that question of why. Why did she go to such great lengths to, talk about, to explain what she did? Why did she go to such great lengths to defraud everyone and cover it up and all of that? Like, how much did she know is even obfuscated by the show, where it's like, the show even maintains it, like, I don't know if the show maintains it, but the show kind of doesn't concede that she may have had an active role in the day-to-day operations that contributed to the fraud. Like, that's kind of a problem for a show like that. Meanwhile, here, it's like, it doesn't take away Michelle's actions. It just kind of gives everything in perspective. Why did Michelle do what she did? Why else was, like, because the thing is, Michelle didn't put him on the edge, Michelle just pushed him over the edge. Like, And to say that, like, you know, she was blameless in the whole thing, it's like, no, like, if we're talking about this, and we're going to put this in perspective, like, he was suicidal before he met her. And because he was suicidal before he met her, like, that's part of the thing that they have to address, like, the attorney, the prosecutors have to address. It's like, look, you know, he was beaten by his dad, he had all of these things go wrong in his life near constantly, and it's like, you know, and he didn't feel like he belonged, and he had attempted suicide before, and this, that, the other thing, and it's like, they have to address that, where it's like, because that's the thing, it's like, it's not like he was like, oh, golly gee, it's a great day to be alive, and then all of a sudden he meets Michelle, and then Michelle pushes him to suicide. Like, and it's like he had, you know, it's a guy who was struggling with depression and was, you know, and was dealing with these issues, and then decided to be like, oh, well, the next step after this, you know, and then talk to her about suicide, and then what she did that was completely wrong was take that confidence that he was like, hey, I'm thinking of killing myself, and being like, well, then just do it. And it's like, look, you know, Michelle's motivations were, she's a deeply broken person who just wants, you know, who wants attention, and it's like, to say she wants attention feels dismissive, but that's what it is. She wants friends, she wants, you know, social status and popularity, she wants all of these things, and it's like, that's illustrated, like, episode 1, the end of episode 1 is just so haunting, and then I think part of it is, there's definitely a conversation to be had about the role of big pharmaceuticals in issues with teenage depression. There's definitely a conversation to be had, because, like, look, you watch TV and they advertise antidepressants on TV. Like, number one, we really shouldn't be advertising medications on TV, and then, like, ask your doctor about this. It's like, that shouldn't be the way it works. But the thing is, it's like, one of the things they always say when you're on these antidepressants is being on them will increase your thoughts of suicidal thoughts and actions in children, teens, and young adults. And it's like, look, there's a conversation to be had about that. There's definitely a conversation to be had about that. But the fact that it's kind of painted as, here's a way to try and explain away Michelle's actions, is silly almost. Not silly, but it feels dismissive. Where it feels like it's like, you know, it's being used as an attorney's trick to try and absolve someone from blame, rather than starting a legitimate conversation regarding what is a serious issue. And it is something that needs to be discussed. And it is somewhat addressed in the show, but it's not really addressed in a way that it is well. I think that unlike the Theranos show, this one drags. And the pacing is, you know, very slow on this one, because it's like, there's only so much you can do. There is only so much story to tell. Like, what are we going to do to, you know, continue this past, like, you know, we can tell the story of them meeting and all of that, and I like how it's kind of intercut between the two, where it's not like, oh, here's, you know, like, it's not like, you know, chronologically, and then leading up to the death, and then doing that. This is a more interesting way of doing it, with flashbacks, and I'm still loving the way they portray text messages, because the way it is portrayed lends to explaining Michelle's mental state, where it's like, you know, the fact that, and look, to be honest, it's like, text messages, I said this last week too, text messages are a conversation. Like, it is, like, if I'm having a conversation with someone over text, it basically is a conversation over, you know, whatever the topic is. like, it is one of those things where it's like, it is, you know, me talking to the person, not me, you know, I'm stuck in traffic now, not me, you know, having this blind conversation with nothing, as I'm talking to this person. And I think the idea that, you know, why can't they do road work overnight? I swear to fucking God, why do you have to do it during the morning commute? It just baffles me. So, like, that conversation happens between the two of them, and it's like, you know, they feel like there is a... Maybe it's not road work, there's a cop here. But either way, people gotta slow the fuck down and just watch to see what happens. And it's... Oh, no, it's highway patrol. But it's like, looking at, like, you know, like, the slow and steady pace does kind of, to an extent, work for this show. But at the same time, you know, not really. Because it's like, look, I mean, we do need, like, it's not that it's boring, per se. It's that the show is, you know, it's taking steps to address the issue at hand, but not in the most expedient way. And look, there's definitely a conversation to be had about whether or not that expedience is needed in a case like this. You motherfuckers, you can't just stay in one lane. You gotta follow me around. There's this guy in front of me, a propane tank. I'm just trying to get to work on time. Really all I'm trying to do. I realize that's not asking a lot, but fuck. So I think the show is kind of interesting, and I do like a lot of what they do on this show. I don't think necessarily that it is 100% handled the best possible way. I think pacing is just my only issue, where it's like, I feel a lot of the time as I'm watching, I'm like, well, fuck, can we just move this along? Like, why am I still watching this? Why is it still moving at a glacial pace to get to the end of the story, which is, you know, we know what happens. Michelle gets convicted, and Michelle, she actually just got out of jail recently. We know where this story ends. It's not a mystery as to, what's going to happen next. I mean, to people who don't know the story, it may be, but, like, for you know, people who, you know, read the news, it's like, it's a big deal. And it's a sad story, but, like, you know, I feel like this probably could have been done in one or two less episodes. I feel like, and I feel like there's a, like, that, you know, that's the thing, is like, they definitely could have done this in one or two less episodes, and I think if you were to tighten up the episode count, it would force you to not make, you know, not do things like, what's it called, like, portray the, not portray the families as sympathetically. It's not the families portrayed sympathetically, but, like, there is some inconsistency in tone across how the Roys are portrayed. Because really it's a show about Michelle, and they're just kind of collateral damage to Michelle's behavior. So, like, it's one of those things where it's like, it would be more interesting, to me at least, to have that kind of fleshed out a little more, and have it be like, oh, well, you know, she's going to, like, we need to explain what's, you know, like that's something that I want to see explained a little bit better. That's something I want to see explained a little bit better over the course of the television show is, I mean, I think there's only one episode left. Hulu is not good at this. I mean, also, I have to look up for Disney Plus shows to see how long they are, because they don't, like, at least Hulu, when they do the weekly, show the rest of the episodes are. Sometimes they'll show just the next week. Other times they'll show the entire duration of the show. And it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, well, why is one taking up that space and not the other? And it's just, well, whatever. I don't understand how they make that call over which one is going to get a full episode list before the show comes out, and which one's going to get just the upcoming week or all that, or if there is just the upcoming week. But now I think the next episode is the trial. Because that's the thing too. It's like she has been indicted at this point, I think. Like, she's been indicted, and then the next, this whole episode, she got indicted at the end of the last episode. She was arrested and indicted on manslaughter charges. There is one pre-trial motion, or one pre-trial, hearing in this episode. Just one. And that's it. And it's one of those things where it's like, you see it and you're like, oh, well, why? Why not go a little bit more in depth? Why not go slightly more, into that part of it? Because ultimately, now we're into what became a First Amendment question over freedom of speech. Because I think up until, 2 weeks ago, it was, the Supreme Court decided not to hear the case. I think it was fairly recently, the Supreme Court was like, no, we're not gonna hear this. And it's it's one of those things where it's well, why was that? That's the thing you should really get into a little bit more, I would say, is get into that. And it's I think that, at a certain point, when you're talking about a teenage relationship and about how much these two care about each other, I think, and it's I think that it's not that less is more, but I think that at a certain point, you're just kind of spinning your wheels in the mud, so to speak, and you're just okay, we get it. We get what you're saying here. It is easy to understand. It is not hard to, figure out what you believe is going on here. It is crystal clear. The problem is you're not doing enough to, if you keep doing that, then what's the point of telling the story as it happens? That's the question I have. It's you need to, we get it at this point. At this point, we understand what happened. We don't need to see an entire timeline of their relationship, considering that each time it happens, it's getting more and more well, I'm just going to tune this out. Because it's okay, these two care about each other. He values her opinion. She says to do something. He thinks he should do it. Okay, cool. How many more ways can you put that before it gets redundant? And on that note, we'll wrap up for today, and we'll be back with Moon Knight today. And I think we're going to talk about Master. But we also have Fantastic Beasts this week. So until then, have a great rest of your week.